The Outcast among stars. The spaceport was a swirling mass of chaos, aliens of every kind rushing to their destinations, vendors shouting about rare goods, and starship engines humming in the background. But amidst the bustle, Lyria felt the weight of every stare on her blue skin. She pulled her hood tighter, trying to melt into the shadows. Her blue skin wasn't just a mark of difference. It was a curse in the eyes of most. The stories spread across the galaxy spoke of her kind as dangerous and cursed beings. Lyria didn't have the luxury of blending in. The whispers followed her wherever she went. "There she is," someone murmured, and she tensed. Lyria's heart raced as she heard heavy boots behind her. She risked a glance over her shoulder and saw 3 bounty hunters entering the spaceport. Each one looked rough, armed, and focused. They scanned the crowd, holding a glowing device that beeped softly. Tracking her, no doubt. Her fingers curled into fists. She couldn't let them catch her. Not again. Lyria darted into a narrow alley between 2 vendor stalls. The scent of fried alien delicacies made her stomach churn, but she ignored it, focusing only on escape. The bounty hunters' voices grew louder, and she knew she couldn't outrun them for long. Suddenly, she bumped into someone. A tall human in a dark jacket with messy brown hair and an easy smirk. He steadied her with one hand. "Easy there," he said. Then he noticed her hood slipping back slightly, revealing her face. His eyes widened for a moment, but instead of recoiling like most did, he simply tilted his head, curious. "Leave me alone," Lyria hissed, trying to push past him. "Not the friendliest type, are you?" he said, glancing over her shoulder. "But I think you've got bigger problems." The bounty hunters were closing in, their tracker beeping louder. Lyria cursed under her breath. "Come with me if you want to live," the human said suddenly, his tone serious. She stared at him, unsure. "Why would I trust you?" "Because I don't like those guys either," he said, nodding toward the hunters. "And because you don't have much of a choice." Lyria hesitated for a split second, then nodded. The human grabbed her hand and led her through a maze of corridors, past piles of discarded machinery and forgotten cargo. He moved quickly and confidently, like someone who knew the spaceport well. "What's your name?" he asked as they ran. "Why do you care?" "Fine, I'll call you Blue," he said, grinning. "I'm Ethan, by the way." Lyria rolled her eyes but didn't reply. She didn't want to get attached to anyone, not after everything she'd been through. Ethan led her to a hidden door behind a stack of crates. He pushed it open, revealing a small maintenance tunnel. "This way," he said, motioning for her to follow. The tunnel was dimly lit, and the air smelled of oil and rust. Lyria could hear the distant hum of machinery. Ethan kept glancing back to make sure she was still following. "Why are you helping me?" she finally asked. Ethan shrugged. "Let's just say I've got a soft spot for people who don't fit in." Before Lyria could respond, the sound of the bounty hunters' voices echoed through the tunnel. They had found the hidden door. "Move faster," Ethan said, picking up the pace. They emerged into a small docking bay where a starship stood waiting. It wasn't much to look at, an old patchwork vessel that had clearly seen better days, but it was their only chance. "Get in," Ethan said, hitting a button to lower the ship's ramp. Lyria hesitated, glancing back at the tunnel. The bounty hunters were getting closer. "Hey," Ethan called. "You want to get caught, or you want to live?" That snapped her out of it. She ran up the ramp, and Ethan followed, slamming the controls to close it behind them. The ship's engines roared to life, and Lyria felt a jolt as they lifted off. Through a small window, she saw the bounty hunters burst into the docking bay, shouting and waving their weapons. But it was too late. They were already in the air. As the ship ascended into the starry void, Lyria leaned against the wall, catching her breath. Ethan sat across from her, studying her with a curious expression. "So," he said after a moment, "what's a blue-skinned girl like you doing with a bunch of bounty hunters on her tail?" Lyria didn't answer. She didn't trust him yet, not completely. But for now, he was her only ally in a galaxy that seemed determined to hunt her down. "Suit yourself," Ethan said, leaning back in his seat. "But if you're gonna stick around, you might as well tell me your name." Lyria hesitated, then finally muttered, "It's Lyria." "Lyria," Ethan repeated, as if testing the sound of it. "Well, Lyria, welcome to the Solace. It's not much, but it's home. And for now, it's safe." Safe. The word felt foreign to her, but she wanted to believe him. For the first time in what felt like forever, Lyria allowed herself a small flicker of hope. But deep down, she knew this was just the beginning. A fragile alliance. The hum of the starship's engines was steady, but the tension inside was anything but. Lyria sat in the corner of the cramped cockpit, her eyes scanning the stars through the viewport. The man who had saved her, Ethan, moved about the ship, checking systems and muttering under his breath. She didn't trust him. Not yet. "This isn't how I pictured my day," Ethan said, breaking the silence. He leaned against the control panel, arms crossed, picking up a runaway with half the galaxy hunting her down. Lyria's sharp gaze snapped to him. "You didn't have to help me." Ethan smirked. "True, but I've got a soft spot for people in trouble. Besides, you're interesting." She frowned. "Interesting. Not every day you see someone light up like a supernova when they're cornered," he said, referencing the burst of blue energy she'd unleashed to blind the bounty hunters. "That was you, right?" Lyria's stomach tightened. That power had always been more curse than blessing. She didn't know him answers. "Forget it," she muttered, turning away. But Ethan wasn't the type to let things go. "Look, I'm not your enemy," he said, his tone softer now. "But if we're gonna outrun those hunters, I need to know what I'm dealing with. What did you do to make them so eager to chase you?" Lyria hesitated. Her instincts told her to keep quiet, to trust no one. But she also knew she couldn't survive alone. Not anymore. "I'm the last of my kind," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "That's dramatic. What happened?" She shot him a sharp look. "My people were wiped out because of what we are, because of what we can do." "And what's that?" Lyria hesitated, then looked down at her hands. "Our energy. It's powerful, dangerous. People fear it. They fear us. That's why the hunters are after me. They think I'm a threat." Ethan studied her for a moment, then shrugged. "So, you're special. Sounds like their problem, not yours." Lyria blinked, caught off guard by his casual response. "You don't think I'm dangerous?" Ethan grinned. "Oh, you're definitely dangerous. But I've been around worse." For a moment, Lyria felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in years. Acceptance. But she quickly pushed it aside. Before she could respond, a shrill alarm blared from the console. Ethan rushed to the controls, his easy demeanor replaced by sharp focus. "Looks like we've got company," he said grimly. Lyria stood and peered over his shoulder. Two sleek, black ships appeared on the radar, closing in fast. "Bounty hunters," she said, her voice tight. Ethan nodded. "They must have tracked us when we left the spaceport. They'll try to board us or blast us out of the sky. What do we do?" Ethan grinned, flipping switches and pressing buttons. "We don't make it easy for them." The ship lurched as he threw it into a steep dive, dodging the first volley of laser fire. Lyria grabbed onto the edge of the console to steady herself. "You fly like a maniac," she muttered. Ethan laughed. "And you're welcome." The bounty hunters' ships stayed on their tail, firing relentlessly. Ethan's ship, the Solace, wasn't built for combat, but it was fast and nimble in the hands of an experienced pilot. "Can't outrun them forever," Ethan said. "Got any of that energy magic left?" Lyria hesitated. Using her powers drained her, and she wasn't sure she had enough strength left. But as another blast shook the ship, she knew she didn't have a choice. "Get me closer to them," she said, her voice steady. Ethan shot her a surprised look but didn't argue. "You're the boss. Blue. He veered the ship sharply, bringing them dangerously close to one of the bounty hunter's vessels. Lyria pressed her hand against the viewport, focusing on the energy building within her. Her veins glowed faintly, and she felt the familiar surge of power. With a burst of light, a wave of blue energy shot from the ship, engulfing the nearest enemy vessel. The bounty hunter's systems shorted out, and the ship spun out of control before exploding in a fiery blaze. Lyria collapsed to her knees, exhausted. "One down," Ethan said, glancing at her with something that might have been admiration. "You all right?" She nodded weakly. "Just tired." The second ship was still on them, but before Ethan could make his next move, a new signal appeared on the radar. Another vessel, larger and more imposing, loomed ahead. "Great," Ethan muttered. "More trouble." But as the larger ship fired on the remaining bounty hunter, destroying it in one shot, both Lyria and Ethan stared in stunned silence. "Who's that?" Lyria asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan frowned, his hands tightening on the controls. "No idea, but something tells me we're about to find out." The larger ship sent a transmission request. Ethan hesitated before accepting. A shadowy figure appeared on the screen, their voice cold and commanding. "Lyria," the figure said, "you've been running for a long time, but it's over now. Come with me, and no one else has to get hurt." The screen went dark before she could respond. Ethan glanced at her, his expression serious. "Friend of yours?" Lyria's hands clenched into fists. "No, and we need to get out of here. Now." The fragile alliance between them was about to be tested in ways neither of them could imagine. Hunted across the stars. The silence of space was deceiving. From the cockpit of the Solace, the stars glittered peacefully, but Ethan knew better. Danger was never far behind. He leaned back in his seat, watching as Lyria traced the patterns on the mysterious artifact she'd taken from the bounty hunters. Her fingers glowed faintly blue as she worked, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I don't get it," Ethan said, breaking the quiet. "We've been running for hours, and you're still messing with that thing. What is it, anyway?" Lyria didn't look up. "It's a star map. I'm trying to decode it." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "A map to where?" "To answers," she replied cryptically, her voice low. Before Ethan could press further, the radar beeped sharply, signaling an incoming vessel. He snapped upright, his easygoing demeanor replaced by alertness. "Blue," he said, glancing at the screen. "Looks like we got company again, and they're not here for tea." Lyria abandoned the artifact and joined him at the console. Two ships were closing in fast, their sleek designs unmistakable. "More bounty hunters," she muttered. "Fantastic," Ethan said, rolling his eyes. "They're like flies you can't swat. Hang on." He slammed the controls, and the Solace lurched into motion, its engines roaring to life. The ship veered sharply, dodging the first volley of laser fire. Lyria clung to the edge of the console. "Do you always fly like this?" "Only when someone's trying to kill me," Ethan shot back, grinning despite the danger. The enemy ships pursued them relentlessly, their weapons blazing. The cockpit shook with each near miss, and Ethan cursed under his breath. "We can't outrun them forever," Lyria said, her voice steady but tense. Ethan glanced at her. "Got any more of that light show up your sleeve?" Lyria hesitated. Using her energy was risky. It drained her, and every time she used it, she felt the strain deep in her bones. But she couldn't let the hunters catch them. "I'll need you to get me closer," she said finally. Ethan smirked. "You're full of terrible ideas, but I like it." He veered the ship sharply, maneuvering dangerously close to one of the hunters. Lyria pressed her hands against the viewport, focusing. Her veins began to glow, and the ship filled with a faint hum as her energy built. With a burst of light, a pulse shot from her hands, hitting the nearest enemy vessel. Sparks erupted as its systems overloaded, sending it spiraling out of control. "One down," Ethan said, but his victory was short-lived. The second ship unleashed a volley of precise shots, rocking the Solace. "Shields are failing," Ethan said grimly. "We're not gonna last much longer." Lyria pushed herself up, her body trembling from the effort of using her powers. "There's another way," she said, her voice firm despite her exhaustion. Ethan turned to her. "You better not say surrender." "No," Lyria said, gripping the edge of the console. "The artifact. It's not just a map. It's a beacon. If I activate it, it might summon help." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Or it might bring every bounty hunter in the galaxy down on us." "We don't have a choice," she said, meeting his gaze. "Trust me." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Do it." Lyria grabbed the artifact and placed her hands on its surface. The strange symbols etched into it began to glow, pulsing in time with her energy. A sharp, high-pitched hum filled the ship as the artifact came to life. Outside, the pursuing ship suddenly veered off course, its pilot seemingly disoriented by the artifact's signal. Ethan took the opportunity to fire the ship's last defense, a barrage of flares that distracted the hunter long enough for them to escape. As the Solace sped away, Lyria slumped against the wall, clutching the artifact. Ethan glanced back at her, concern flickering in his eyes. "You okay?" She nodded weakly. It worked. For now. Ethan returned his focus to the controls, navigating them into a quieter region of space. "So, what happens now?" "We just keep running until someone else shows up to kill us." Lyria stared at the artifact, her expression unreadable. "The map has coordinates," she said. "It's leading us to a planet. A sanctuary for my people." Ethan frowned. "You sure it's a sanctuary? Sounds more like a trap." "It's a risk I have to take," Lyria said. She looked at him, her voice softer. "You don't have to come with me." Ethan snorted. "And miss all this excitement?" "Not a chance." Lyria allowed herself a small smile. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel completely alone. But as the artifact pulsed in her hands, sending its mysterious signal into the void, she couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles were far from over. A dangerous revelation. The planet beneath them was a wasteland, a barren expanse of jagged rocks and swirling red dust. The Solace shuddered as it descended through the planet's turbulent atmosphere, and Ethan wrestled with the controls, muttering curses under his breath. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, glancing at Lyria. She stood beside him, her fingers gripping the edge of the console tightly. "The artifact's coordinates led us here," she said, her voice steady despite the storm raging outside. "This is where we'll find answers." Ethan didn't look convinced. "This place doesn't scream sanctuary. More like a graveyard." The ship landed with a jolt, and silence settled in the cockpit. Ethan powered down the engines, but his hand lingered on the controls, as if ready to take off at the first sign of trouble. Lyria picked up the artifact, its glow dim but persistent. "Whatever we find here, it's important. I can feel it." "Yeah, well, let's hope your instincts are better than your sense of self-preservation," Ethan said, grabbing his jacket. They stepped out into the harsh landscape, the wind whipping around them. The air was thin and cold, and the ground beneath their boots was cracked and lifeless. But in the distance, a faint light flickered, a beacon that seemed to call to Lyria. "There," she said, pointing. Ethan sighed. "Of course. The creepy glowing thing. Lead the way, Blue." As they walked, the silence between them grew heavy. The desolation of the planet mirrored the weight Lyria felt inside. She clutched the artifact tightly, its energy pulsing faintly in time with her heartbeat. "Why are you so determined to find this place?" Ethan asked finally. Lyria hesitated, then said, "Because I'm tired of running. If this is what my people left behind, I need to know why. I need to understand who I am." Ethan nodded, his expression softening. "Fair enough. Just don't forget, you're not alone anymore." Lyria glanced at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. She was about to respond when the ground beneath them trembled. A deep, resonant hum filled the air, and the beacon ahead flared brighter. Is it supposed to do that? Ethan asked, taking a cautious step back. Before Lyria could answer, the beacon shot a beam of light into the sky. The artifact in her hands responded, glowing brightly and vibrating in her grip. Suddenly, the ground split open, revealing a hidden entrance. A set of ancient steps led down into darkness, and the hum grew louder, resonating deep in Lyria's chest. "Well, that's not ominous," Ethan said. Lyria tightened her grip on the artifact and started down the steps. "Stay here if you want." "Not a chance," Ethan said, following close behind. The descent was steep, and the air grew colder with each step. The walls were etched with strange symbols that seemed to glow faintly, illuminating the path. Lyria recognized them. They were the same as the ones on the artifact. At the bottom of the stairs, they entered a vast chamber. The ceiling arched high above them, and the walls were lined with more glowing symbols. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it rested a large, crystal-like object that pulsed with light. Lyria approached cautiously, the artifact in her hands glowing brighter with each step. This is what the map led us to." Ethan hung back, his eyes scanning the room. "Feels like a trap," he muttered. As Lyria placed the artifact on the pedestal, the crystal flared to life. A holographic figure appeared, a tall, blue-skinned being with eyes that seemed to peer straight through her. "Lyria," the figure said, its voice echoing. "You have come seeking the truth." Lyria's breath caught. Who are you?" "I am the keeper of your people's legacy," the figure said. "And you are the last of our line, the one who carries the burden of our power." Ethan stepped forward, his hand resting on his blaster. "What kind of burden are we talking about?" The hologram ignored him, focusing on Lyria. "The energy within you is both a gift and a curse. It is why our kind was hunted, why we were driven to extinction. But you, Lyria, have the power to rebuild or to destroy." Lyria took a step back, her heart pounding. "I don't want to destroy anything. I just want to survive." "To survive, you must embrace what you are," the figure said. "And you must beware those who seek to control you. They will come for you, as they came for us." Before Lyria could ask more, the hologram flickered and vanished. The chamber began to tremble, and the symbols on the walls flared brightly. "We need to go now," Ethan said, grabbing her arm. As they ran back up the stairs, the chamber collapsed behind them, dust and debris raining down. They barely made it to the surface before the entrance sealed itself, leaving no trace of what lay below. Back on the Solace, Ethan turned to Lyria. "So what now?" Lyria stared at the artifact, her mind racing. "Now we find out who's hunting me, and why they're so afraid of what I can do." Ethan nodded, his expression serious. "Then let's make them regret it." As the ship lifted off, Lyria felt a new resolve building inside her. She wasn't just running anymore. She was ready to fight back. Betrayal in the void. The stars stretched endlessly outside the window of the Solace, but the tension inside the ship felt claustrophobic. Lyria sat at the table in the dimly lit galley, her fingers tracing the glowing lines of the artifact. Across from her, Ethan leaned back in his chair, watching her with a mix of curiosity and caution. "You're quiet," Ethan said, breaking the silence. "That usually means trouble." Lyria glanced up. "The artifact isn't just a map," she said, her voice low. "It's something more. It's alive, in a way. It responds to me." "Alive?" Ethan's eyebrows shot up. "I'm starting to think you collect problems for fun." Before she could respond, the ship's proximity alarm blared. Ethan jumped to his feet and rushed to the cockpit, Lyria close behind. On the radar, a single ship loomed closer, a sleek black vessel with an unmistakable predatory design. "Friend of yours?" Ethan asked, his voice tense. Lyria shook her head. "No, but they've been tracking us since we left the planet." As the enemy ship closed in, it sent a communication request. Ethan hesitated, then accepted. The screen flickered to life, revealing a blue-skinned man with piercing silver eyes and a sharp, calculating smile. "Lyria," the man said smoothly. "You've been busy." Lyria froze. "Who are you?" "Tarek," he said, inclining his head. "A survivor, like you. One of the few left." Ethan frowned. "Another blue-skinned wonder. Great. Why do I feel like this is about to get complicated?" Tarek ignored him, his gaze fixed on Lyria. "I've been looking for you. The artifact you carry belongs to our people. It is the key to restoring what we lost." Lyria's grip on the artifact tightened. "If you're one of us, why didn't you come sooner? Why didn't you help me when I was running for my life?" "I had to stay hidden," Tarek said. "But now that you've activated the artifact, everything has changed. We can rebuild together." Ethan crossed his arms. "You're awfully friendly for someone who just showed up out of nowhere." Tarek's smile faded slightly. "I understand your distrust, but I'm here to help." He paused, his silver eyes narrowing. "Lyria, come aboard my ship. We'll be safer there. Together, we can unlock the artifact's full potential." Lyria hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to be cautious. "Why should I trust you?" Tarek's expression softened. "Because we're the same. You've been alone for so long, but you don't have to be anymore. Let me help you." Ethan leaned toward her and whispered, "This guy's too smooth. Something's off." But Lyria's heart ached at Tarek's words. The thought of finally finding someone like her, someone who understood her struggles, was almost too tempting to ignore. "I'll go," she said, her voice steady. Ethan's eyes widened. "Lyria, are you serious? This has trap written all over it." "I have to take the chance," she said, clutching the artifact. With a deep sigh, Ethan relented. "Fine, but I'm coming with you." Tarek agreed, and moments later, the Solace docked with his ship. The interior was sleek and sterile, a stark contrast to Ethan's patchwork vessel. Tarek greeted them personally, his charm unwavering. "I've prepared everything for our journey," Tarek said, leading them through the corridors. "With the artifact, we can locate the sanctuary of our ancestors. It's the last hope for our people." Ethan trailed behind, his hand resting on the blaster at his side. "This place gives me the creeps," he muttered. In the ship's central chamber, Tarek gestured for Lyria to place the artifact on a pedestal. The room was filled with glowing panels and strange symbols that mirrored those on the artifact. As Lyria placed the artifact on the pedestal, it flared to life, sending a wave of energy through the room. Tarek's expression shifted. His polite smile became something colder, more predatory. "Perfect," he said, his voice dripping with satisfaction. Before Lyria could react, restraints snapped around her wrists and ankles, pinning her in place. Ethan lunged forward, drawing his blaster, but Tarek waved a hand, and a force field separated them. "What are you doing?" Lyria demanded, struggling against the restraints. Tarek's silver eyes gleamed. "You have no idea what you're holding, do you? The artifact isn't just a key, it's a weapon. And you're the only one who can power it." Lyria's heart sank. "You lied to me." "I didn't lie," Tarek said with a smirk. "I just didn't tell you the whole truth. Don't worry, though. Your sacrifice won't be in vain." Ethan slammed his fists against the force field. "Let her go, you snake." Tarek ignored him, turning his attention to the artifact. As he activated it, the ship trembled, and a holographic map of the galaxy appeared, marked with coordinates glowing ominously. "Soon," Tarek said, his voice almost reverent, "I will wield the power of our ancestors, and the galaxy will kneel before me." Lyria felt the artifact draining her energy, and she fought against the restraints with everything she had. "You won't get away with this," she said through gritted teeth. Tarek laughed. "And who's going to stop me? You or your human pet?" But Lyria wasn't done yet. She closed her eyes, summoning the last reserves of her strength. Her veins glowed brighter, and the artifact began to pulse erratically. Tarek frowned. "What are you doing?" "Something you didn't plan for," Lyria said, her voice fierce. The room filled with a blinding blue light as Lyria unleashed her energy, shattering the restraints and sending Tarek flying across the chamber. The force field around Ethan dissolved, and he sprang into action, firing at Tarek's guards as they entered the room. "Lyria," Ethan called. "We need to get out of here." Lyria grabbed the artifact, her energy still crackling around her. She and Ethan fought their way back to the Solace, leaving Tarek's ship in chaos. As they sped away into the void, Lyria collapsed into her seat, clutching the artifact tightly. "You were right," she said, her voice shaky. "I shouldn't have trusted him." Ethan gave her a small, reassuring smile. "Lesson learned. But hey, we're still alive. That's what counts." Lyria nodded, but she knew this was far from over. Tarek was still out there, and the power of the artifact was more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. Rising from the ashes, the silence of the Solace was heavy, broken only by the occasional creak of the ship's worn frame. Lyria sat on the floor of the cargo hold, her legs crossed, the artifact glowing faintly in front of her. Her body ached from the energy she had expended escaping Tarek's ship, but her mind churned with thoughts she couldn't silence. Ethan leaned against the wall, watching her. His usually relaxed demeanor was gone, replaced by something sharper, concern mixed with determination. "You've been staring at that thing for hours," he said finally. "You're gonna burn yourself out." Lyria didn't look up. "I don't have a choice. The artifact, it's changing. I can feel it. Whatever Tarek did, it's waking up." Ethan pushed off the wall and crouched beside her. "And what happens when it's fully awake? You saw what it did to Tarek's ship. It almost tore you apart." "That's why I have to figure this out," she said, her voice firm. "If I don't, Tarek will. And next time, we might not get away." Ethan sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "All right, but let's not forget we're still sitting ducks. Tarek's probably got half the galaxy hunting for us." Lyria glanced at him, a small flicker of gratitude in her tired eyes. "You could have left me behind. You still can. This isn't your fight." Ethan smirked, his familiar cockiness creeping back. "And miss all this excitement? Not a chance. Besides, you'd be lost without me." Before Lyria could respond, the ship's alarm blared, cutting through the quiet. Ethan shot to his feet, his hand instinctively going to the blaster on his hip. "What now?" They rushed to the cockpit, where the radar showed a large vessel approaching fast. Ethan's hands flew over the controls, trying to get a clearer reading. "It's not Tarek," he said, frowning. "Too big. Looks more like a dreadnought." Lyria's stomach tightened. "Military." Ethan nodded grimly. "Yeah, and they don't look friendly." A transmission request flashed on the screen. Ethan hesitated, then accepted. A stern-faced officer appeared, his uniform crisp and his expression cold. "This is Commander Voran of the Dominion Fleet," the man said. "Your vessel is in restricted space. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." "Great," Ethan muttered, "because we didn't have enough problems already." Lyria stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. "We can't let them take the artifact. If they find out what it is, they'll hand it over to Tarek, or worse," Ethan finished. He gritted his teeth, his mind racing. "All right, hang on." Instead of complying, Ethan hit the throttle, and the Solace roared into motion. The dreadnought immediately opened fire, and the ship shuddered violently as the blasts grazed its shields. "Are you trying to get us killed?" Lyria shouted, gripping the console to steady herself. "Trust me, this is the better option." Ethan called back, weaving the ship through a dense asteroid field. The dreadnought followed, its massive frame struggling to navigate the tight spaces. Lyria's heart pounded as the ship dipped and rolled, dodging debris and enemy fire. She clutched the artifact tightly, its energy pulsing in rhythm with her fear. "We can't keep this up," she shouted. Ethan's jaw tightened, Then you'd better figure out how to use that thing, because I'm running out of tricks. Lyria closed her eyes, focusing on the artifact. Its energy hummed in her hands, and she reached out with her mind, searching for a way to control it. The symbols etched into its surface glowed brighter, and she felt a strange connection, like the artifact was alive and waiting for her command. Suddenly, a burst of light shot from the artifact, enveloping the ship. The dreadnought's sensors scrambled, and its weapons powered down momentarily, giving the Solace the opening it needed to escape the asteroid field and jump to hyperspace. When the ship finally stabilized, Lyria slumped into a seat, her energy drained. Ethan glanced at her, his expression a mix of awe and concern. "That was insane," he said, running a hand through his hair. "But it worked. Whatever you did, it worked." Lyria managed a weak smile. "It's getting stronger. I can feel it." Ethan nodded, his gaze turning serious. "Which means Tarek's not the only one we have to worry about. If the Dominion finds out what that artifact can do, they'll come after us, too." Lyria finished. Ethan leaned back in his chair, letting out a deep breath. "Great. More enemies. Just what we needed." Despite his sarcasm, there was a glint of determination in his eyes. Lyria noticed it, and for the first time since they had met, she felt a strange sense of trust in him. A belief that he wouldn't abandon her, no matter how dangerous things got. "What's next?" Ethan asked, turning to her. Lyria looked at the artifact, its glow now faint but steady. "We find the sanctuary," she said firmly, "before anyone else does." Ethan grinned. "All right, Blue. Let's see where this crazy ride takes us." As the Solace sped through hyperspace, Lyria couldn't help but feel that they were heading toward something far bigger than either of them could imagine. But for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She was ready. The human who changed everything. The sanctuary wasn't what Lyria had imagined. It wasn't the safe haven her ancestors had promised, nor was it a hidden paradise untouched by war. Instead, it was a massive ancient structure hovering in the void, an enormous ring-shaped station glowing faintly with an energy that felt both familiar and ominous. The Solace approached slowly, its engines humming in the silence of space. Lyria and Ethan stood side by side in the cockpit, staring at the station as it loomed larger on the viewport. "This is it," Lyria said softly, her voice tinged with awe and uncertainty. The artifact in her hands pulsed faintly, as if guiding her toward the station. Ethan frowned. "It looks abandoned. Creepy, too. Are we sure this is where we want to be?" Lyria nodded, though her grip on the artifact tightened. "If the sanctuary holds the answers we need, it's here. But we have to be careful. I can feel something, like it's waiting for me." "Waiting for you or waiting to kill you?" Ethan muttered, his fingers brushing the blaster at his side. As they docked, the airlock hissed open, revealing a dimly lit corridor lined with glowing blue symbols. The air was stale, but breathable, and the faint hum of energy vibrated through the floor beneath their feet. "This place feels alive," Ethan said, his voice low. "It is," Lyria replied, stepping forward cautiously. The artifact's glow brightened with every step, the symbols on the walls responding in kind. The corridor led to a massive central chamber, where a towering crystalline structure floated above a pedestal. Streams of light flowed from the crystal to the walls, illuminating the room in a soft, otherworldly glow. Lyria approached the pedestal, her breath catching in her throat. The energy in the room resonated with her own, and she felt a pull, an instinctive connection she couldn't ignore. "This is it," she whispered, "the heart of the sanctuary." Ethan hung back, scanning the room with wary eyes. "I don't like this. It's too quiet." Before he could say more, the artifact in Lyria's hands flared brightly, and the room seemed to come alive. A voice echoed through the chamber, deep and resonant. "Welcome, Lyria. You have come far to reach this place." Lyria froze. The voice wasn't just in the air. It was in her mind, ancient and powerful. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I am the guardian of this sanctuary," the voice replied. "And you are the last of our line. The power you carry is the key to restoring what was lost, or unleashing destruction upon the galaxy." Ethan stepped forward, his hand on his blaster. "She's not destroying anything. She's here for answers." The voice ignored him, its focus solely on Lyria. "The artifact you hold is a conduit. Through it, you can awaken the full potential of your energy. But be warned, this power comes at a cost." Lyria hesitated, her heart pounding. "What kind of cost?" "Your connection to this energy will consume you if you are not strong enough. It is a choice only you can make." Ethan looked at her, his usual smirk replaced by something more serious. "Lyria, you don't have to do this. There's always another way." But Lyria shook her head. "If I don't, Tarek will. He'll use this power to destroy everything. I can't let that happen." She placed the artifact on the pedestal, and the crystal above it flared to life. Streams of energy flowed into Lyria, and she gasped as the power surged through her. Memories, emotions, and knowledge flooded her mind. Fragments of her people's history, their triumphs and failures, and the true purpose of the sanctuary. Ethan called her name, but she couldn't respond. The energy was overwhelming, and for a moment, she thought it would consume her. But then she remembered Ethan's words, "You're not alone anymore." With a deep breath, Lyria steadied herself, channeling the energy into the crystal. The room filled with light, and the sanctuary's systems roared to life. The ancient structure began broadcasting a signal across the galaxy, a call to the scattered remnants of her people. As the light dimmed, Lyria collapsed to her knees, exhausted but alive. Ethan rushed to her side, his hand steady on her shoulder. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft. Lyria nodded weakly. "It's done. The sanctuary is active. My people will come." Ethan smiled, helping her to her feet. "Told you we'd make it." But before they could celebrate, an alert blared through the chamber. A holographic display showed Tarek's ship entering the system, its weapons armed and ready. "He's here," Lyria said, her voice grim. Ethan grinned, his blaster already in hand. "Let him come. We're ready for him this time." As the sanctuary's defenses powered up and the crystal pulsed with energy, Lyria felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. With Ethan by her side and the sanctuary's power at her fingertips, she knew they had a chance to not only survive, but to fight back. And for the first time, she truly believed in her own strength.